Hi, everyone. Welcome to the day two recap of Miami Dolphins training camp 2023. Not a good day indeed. We're on YouTube on the All Dolphins podcast. We're on the Fans First Sports Network, wherever you get your podcasts, under Miami Dolphins Insider. And nothing we're going to talk about today, Omar, is going to measure up to what happened toward the end of practice with cornerback Jalen Ramsey. Am I right?
No, Jalen Ramsey had a collision with Tyreek Hill, came down, he looked fine, and then he called for a substitution, called Cam Smith onto the field as he limped off, was examined by the team's trainers. Clearly, he was having his knee examined and looked at. And then ultimately, when it came time for practice to conclude and him to go inside the building, they called over a cart for him because he wasn't walking off. And I think that's the wise approach. Even though it creates a different level of anxiety and fear when the player is carted off. That was a wise approach. And it didn't help that he couldn't walk on both legs. He had to hop to the cart. And that's scary. That's scary. He's a very important player to this team, the way he was practicing. And this is something we'll discuss. We've seen Tyreek Hill terrorize everybody on this Dolphins team, and that has not been the case for the first 2 days of practice.
No, not a whole lot of terrorizing. Before we go on, important to point out what we're allowed to report in terms of injuries is what we can visually see, and no speculation. What we can tell you, it's a fact that he had his left knee looked at by the trainers. It's a fact that he hopped on the cart without putting any weight on his left leg. Those are facts. We're not going to speculate what the injury might be, how severe it could be. Mike McDaniel's going to talk before practice on Friday. Logically, we should get some kind of an update at that time. For the time being, let's just say it's a worrisome situation because obviously Jalen Ramsey, kind of a big piece in that Dolphin defense.
Yeah, best case scenario, you shut him down for a couple of weeks. Worst case scenario, I know we said we weren't going to speculate, but I don't even want to mention if it's an ACL injury, then season is done. Or you would think.
And we're not speculating. We're just pointing out that the range of possibilities in an injury of this sort go from something very minor where he misses a day or two of practice to something
soreness, possible scope, rest, ice, rehab, compression sleeve, 6 weeks to scary time, 9 months. And I don't.
No, I was going to say, I'm going to go again. It could be something as minor as, because your low bar is 6 weeks. No, I'm going to say my low bar is he misses a day or two of practice. That's my low bar.
Really?
We don't, again, I'm not going to speculate. We're not allowed to speculate. Dolphins don't want us to speculate, which is completely fair if we don't know the facts. Again, what we do know is what we saw. And it's interesting too, this came on a day where Jalen Ramsey had a hell of a play early in practice, covering Jalen Waddle down the field. Pretty much step for step, and
was it Waddle or Tyreek?
It was Jalen Waddle, and newsflash: Jalen Waddle is fast, and Jalen Ramsey was right there with him.
Yes,
and jumped up at the last second to break up the long throw from Tua. It was a great play. It was one of the two plays that really stood out on this day. The other one, of course, being the long touchdown pass from Skylar Thompson to Braxton Berrios.
No Cater could do love on the INT of Tua.
Well, first off, it was a 7-on-7.
Wait a minute, 7-on-7 counts. All interceptions count, my brother.
I agree. To me, everything that happens in 11-on-11 carries more weight. And on that particular play, go ahead.
Any interception that a quarterback throws to a defender, whether it's 1-on-1, 7-on-7, half field drills, it counts. Because when they're out there scoring 7-on-7 touchdowns, play after play after play, and everybody's like, when they're doing red zone or goal line work, those things count against the defender. So all of a sudden now the one interception you get during practice doesn't count?
No, time out. Omar, if you know me, and I think you know me, I don't go crazy over 7-on-7 touchdowns or red zone touchdowns where it's like quarterback A, whoever it is, threw 7 touchdown passes in practice. Yeah, they snapped the ball from the 5-yard line 20 times. So, yeah, that's going to happen. So, again,
7 out of 20 touchdowns. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't put as much weight.
You know what? Chad Pennington used to be like 15 out of 20. Remember those days?
Yeah, Chad Pennington was very, very efficient on that play. If you remember the play, and this followed like at the beginning of 7-on-7s, Tua had a very nice, his first pass was a nice out pattern throw to Jalen Waddle. And on this particular one, I don't know exactly what happened. Trying to hit Tyreek Hill over the middle on the deep in or deep cross or whatever you want to call it. And Cater basically undercut the route and stepped in front of Hill. It was a very nice play by Cater Kohu, and certainly encouraging to see him make that kind of play.
Absolutely. That's a young guy who's really stepping up to the occasion. Right now, I can't really tell you who, well, they're doing a lot of things and rotating a lot of guys, but you don't hear much noise from the slot position, which leads me to believe that Cater's doing a pretty good job. Even though Braxton Berrios got that big old touchdown today over rookie Cam Smith. First bad play I've seen him make.
No, it was the second bad play because earlier in practice, it was again another 7-on-7. There was a short inside throw to Braylon Sanders, and Smith was all over him, and everybody.
And they got the PI. You're correct.
Yeah, every media member was like, "That PI." There's no officials on the field, but everybody who was watching practice was saying. Before we move on to talk a bit more about practice, let us do the attendance report along with the 4 guys on PUP who are Teron Armstead, Isaiah Wynn, Nick Needham, and Tanner Connor. 5 guys didn't practice today, including Jalen Phillips. We mentioned him at the end of the recap Wednesday that he tweaked something lower leg. Don't want to say whether it's ankle or foot or whatever, but his lower left leg because he got it retaped. We could see that. Didn't practice today, which based on what we saw Wednesday wasn't necessarily shocking. Also, no Keon Crossan, no Freddie Swain on offense wide receiver, and then no Brandon Jones or Trill Williams. Although this is possibly, as you mentioned, very good point. They're both coming back from ACL tears. It's possible they're on a day on, day off schedule.
Day on, day off, every other day, and I think that's a wise approach. I'm not a big proponent of rushing guys back and dealing with the wear and tear. And to be honest with you, and I know I've said this on this podcast, I was kind of really resistant to practicing Xavier and Jalen Ramsey from the very start, and for reasons that just so happen to have happened today. I don't see where the benefit outweighs the potential costs. And we know there are about 4 players that you cannot play this season without because it would lower the expectations on the season. 5, really. Tyreek Hill.
That's 1.
Xavier Howard.
That's 2.
Teron Armstead.
That's 3.
And Jalen Ramsey.
You mentioned Tyreek and Tua.
Yeah, and Tua. Yes.
That's 5.
Like the outlook on the season drastically changes, and I don't see why you wouldn't just have them do individual work and then break the bubble wrap maybe at joint practices. But that's just
no, that's fair. That's fair.
The toothpaste is out the tube already, so But I reconsider after seeing what happened to Jalen Ramsey. I'm reconsidering my Xavier Howard participation level. I am.
I'll give you credit. I will give you credit because some people might jump on this idea and play the result. You've been very consistent about saying from the start that you wouldn't play them. So props to you for being consistent. The flip side to that is
they need the work.
Coaches would tell you they need work. You can't keep them in bubble wrap. They could get hurt in other situations. So there's a balancing act there that happens. Obviously, we're going to keep our fingers crossed that it's nothing serious. I don't know about you, a couple of the themes from this practice. First of all, let's deal with the quarterbacks as well. I actually liked what I saw from all 3 quarterbacks. The Tua interception aside, I actually thought he threw the ball better than he did yesterday. And this was Skylar actually had a couple of nice throws as well. And this, most importantly to me, was by far the best I've seen Mike White look in a practice.
Was it good?
Since he signed with the Dolphins. I would say that Mike White actually was pretty good. Yeah, he had 1 bad throw to Elijah Higgins early on a slanter where he threw it behind him. He also had a couple of throws, and you even remarked it. He had a pass to Jalen Waddle in the seam where he had some zip on it like we haven't seen before from him.
I am going to limit the Mike White slander because
that's progress right there.
I am the most vocal of all of the media members who we all see it. We all talk about it amongst ourselves. I'm the only one who's publicly saying it. His arm is not good. It's not. And I'm excited for the first practice that fans will get to see, where they'll get to see the arm and they can formulate their own opinions as well. To me,
I said it also. He doesn't have a good arm.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've been as forceful as you have, but no, he doesn't have a good arm.
And it's not. I'm at the point where I don't think it's a competition, and everybody's like, "Well, it's Mike White's job to lose." No, it's a competition, and I really don't think it's a competition because one guy is seemingly clearly ahead. And as I pointed out in a conversation with one of our media cohorts, okay, he was making the argument that money will factor in his decision. Well, when that happens, and players do know that happens, do players lose respect in their coaches because that happens? They absolutely do. And I don't think Mike McDaniels is one of those players who will say, "Hey, I'm willing to lose some respect chips because I got to put this quarterback at number 2 because I'm paying him 5 times what I'm paying Skylar Thompson." The guy who outperforms the other should be the number 2 quarterback. And fortunately, we'll be able to see the whole thing in the exhibition season. And that's what I'm excited about, because just make it a fair competition. Don't make it about money. Don't make it about status. Don't make it about a signing. Like, if it's a fair competition, there's a clear leader. Am I wrong?
No, first of all, they haven't had enough reps to declare a clear leader. I'm sorry. And just because Mike White doesn't throw the ball with the same velocity as Skylar Thompson doesn't mean that Skylar Thompson has outplayed him or outperformed him that much. And hold on, here's the thing. Don't you think the Dolphins had a conviction about what Mike White is as a quarterback, strong arm or not, when they went out and signed him? It's not so much the money that they paid him, it's that they had a conviction. And clearly the Dolphins needed a number 2 quarterback after last season because Teddy Bridgewater proved unreliable in terms of his health. And the Dolphins settled on, I don't say settled, but
they did. You said it right.
They wound up with Mike White. There's a reason. They had a conviction.
Because he's economically more reasonably priced. And listen, cool. It'll be a battle. It'll be something that we monitor and watch during the exhibition season. I know who I think is the front runner. The pass he threw to Braxton Berrios, which was 50-yard downfield. Do you think that Mike White can throw that pass?
Again, we're going to go back to, can a quarterback throw a deep ball? Can he throw it as consistently well as Skylar Thompson can throw that pass? No. But again, there's more to quarterbacking, and I will maintain. You asked me my prediction right now, I'd say I'm at 75%, 25. It's going to be Mike White who's going to be the number 2 quarterback, and not Skylar Thompson.
75%?
Yes.
75.
I know. What's your percentage on Skylar? Because I know you got Skylar ahead. What's your percentage?
I think it's 50-50. I know he's got the odds against him, but I think Skylar. If this is how he's beginning camp, and we know he's a guy that picked up steam last year, I'm dying to see where he's gonna go later on in this. He looked
good in camp all of last summer too. Okay, let's move on. Something else that's happening early in camp that I'm not liking, and it's a couple different players involved. A lot of drop passes, man. Jesus. Elijah Higgins got one a couple of days. Jalen Wallace dropped the pass. Tyreek Hill dropped the pass. Eric Ezukama failed to come up with, probably it's a drop. It was a low ball, but he should have caught it. That's a lot of balls on the ground for.
Channing Tindall dropped an interception. Yeah. No.
Channing Tindall, well, that's kind of different, but yeah. Here he had a chance to land on your stock up list with a pick, and he blew it.
Man, we would have talked to him today. Everybody would have requested Channing Tindall. This is our moment. We got a siege on it. Listen, I'm not gonna pick on him. Like, you know where you stand. Like, you know you haven't been impressive. You know you're that player. Just keep your head down and work. Mitchell Agude.
Yep,
Mitchell Agude. I said yesterday I wasn't going to talk about him, and I wasn't going to get all excited
and yet here you are.
I mean, if I'm going to be honest, he flashed yesterday too, but I didn't want to get like, overhyped. And then when you make plays today, I think he got a call up because Jalen Phillips was down. Somebody need to take more reps. Gets a call up, delivers, makes plays. That's all you want to see. That's all you can ask for. And I got a chance to talk to him, and talk to him just one-on-one, and and ask him a little bit about how much work he done with Jason Taylor, and he talked about how Jason helped him change his mindset and altered his mindset, and really develop a competitive winner's mindset. And if I had to describe what I'm seeing from Mitchell Agude every single day, every opportunity, this guy seizes the moment. And it doesn't matter who he's with, who he's going up against. This guy is trying to make it happen for himself. And love those kinds of players. And he's a lot bigger than I thought he was. I thought he would have been like a rail thin guy or a top half guy with skinny legs like Chris McCain. Like, bro, this guy looks like a beast.
Yeah, he is put together. I saw him in the off season after our practice where he didn't have anything on. It was just like one of those tight fitting t-shirts, and it's like, yeah, that dude's put together.
He's on the all looks team. They got some outside linebackers that, like, have you seen Jalen Phillips' calves and his quads and his thighs?
I'm going to tell you something about Jason Phillips. I think we made the comment about this yesterday. Jason Phillips is Jalen Phillips is almost too muscular for my taste, to where I worry about
cramping,
stiffness, also not having that elasticity that you see a lot of these edge defenders who can bend and move around, because they're like, they're like Gumby like a little bit. And to me, Jalen Phillips he's too cut almost, as ridiculous as that might sound.
I really do need to know what his body fat percentage is, because I mean, you could tell that guy has put in a lot of work into his body in the offseason. And I mean, he wasn't small or undefined before, but he's just taking it to another level. And remember when we used to talk about how Cam Wake was such a, Greek god stud physical specimen? Like, Jalen Phillips, Lord have mercy. It's ridiculous. He's just massive.
Not correct.
So, I mean, there's a video of him in Bradley Chubb. He's bigger than Bradley Chubb. And it's not really close. He's kind of on the Emmanuel Ogbah end. I'd love to see him stand up next to Emmanuel Ogbah.
Yeah, again, but he's more cut. I mean, he might be the most cut guy on this defense. I mean, it's ridiculous. Another guy who caught my eye today, and I know you're going to love talking about him because you have before, Raekwon Davis in the run game defensively, again, was very noticeable. Which is a good sign for the Dolphins, because they're going to need him. As we've mentioned before, this is a team that's pretty thin along the defensive line. So they need not only for those guys to stay healthy, they need for those guys to perform, because they don't have somebody to go to if Sealer, Wilkins, or Raekwon Davis don't get the job done. And so far, I'm so good.
I'm going to cautiously address what we were discussing in practice, because we cannot talk about how utilization of players, but Emmanuel Ogbah, like the player, don't like the usage. And
which we can't describe.
If we're gonna do that, that waters down one other area. I understand that maybe you need to cross-train guys and have guys do different things. But I don't think that plays to his strengths in any facet of the of what he's seen or what he's put on film or what he's done in the NFL. And I'm not saying that he can't do it, but don't like
that he don't like.
don't like it, especially when you're a player and you're at $15 million a year next year, and everybody's penciled you in, actually put you in pen in as that I'm cutting him to create some cap space. Like, give yourself a chance to win, give yourself a chance to have success, and I'm not liking it.
And there, just to make sure we point this out, the reason where a lot of people might look at Agba and say he might be gone after this year is because he's got 15 million guaranteed this year. He's got zero guaranteed next year. So
on a $50 million salary,
with already 7 players on the roster with cap numbers of 20 million or more and several extensions to get done. So yeah, Emmanuel Agba is one of those players who needs to produce and produce big if he's going to be back on with the team in 2024. What else did we see? David Long Jr., who's a guy who would wanted to see in the offseason, made a really nice play on one time where he got in the backfield. He met, I believe it was Myles Gaskin, 3 yards deep into the backfield. That was good to see.
Mitchell Agude had some tackles like that. Christian Wilkins had. I think the defense excelled today. Yesterday, I really thought the offense had a better day. They were a little bit more consistent opening running lanes. The offense didn't have any turnovers today. There was at least 6 sacks, would-be sacks
today.
Yeah.
Where'd you see those? Oh, and I saw one. Cameron Good, 7th round pick from a year ago, had one play where he absolutely, really badly beat tackle Keon Smith at the line and immediately got in the face of Mike White. That would have been a sack. Christian Wilkins had the one sack.
Wilkins had a sack. Agude had a sack.
Agude had a sack.
Emmanuel Agba had maybe 2 would-be sacks. Nothing from Chubb.
I didn't see those.
We sat there, we debated some of them.
By the way, and also, so to explain what we're talking about when we say would-be sacks, obviously during a practice, the second defensive player who's rushing the passer gets close to the quarterback, he's going to stop or he's going to take a side step to avoid the.
I like when they clap. Yeah, that to me is, we have to come up with the universal would-be sack. And we were joking on Vanderbach from back when he was a rookie who's on
IR. He's on
IR. Back when we were doing OTAs, anytime he'd even get close to the quarterback, he was raising his hand. Yeah. Like, that was me.
He was almost doing it at the snap. He was like, let me prepare myself. Go ahead, I had a sack.
Yeah. And so he'd like raise his hand like 6 times during practice. And it's a good indicator of like, okay, this guy made a play. I always look for our guys celebrating with me, like congratulating me. And the clap or, the let up, when you're steamrolling to a quarterback and all of a sudden you let up,
right.
You know what time it is.
Oh yeah, and you touch that quarterback, you're looking for a world of hurt. And if you're a rookie free agent who touches a quarterback, you might be signing your walking papers right there.
Yeah, I thought and felt today that the quarterbacks took too many sacks, and it begins with Tua, and obviously his line isn't great. They did some shuffling of the line today. I was so damn excited to see Kendall Lamb working where he worked yesterday, and he wasn't. I guess they're doing a rotation where guys are working in different spots, and that's cool. That's good. And Kendall Lamb even said he was working at right tackle today. So I'm not reporting anything that's a state secret. He said it out of his mind.
The guy said it is fair game. Yep.
Yeah. When a guy said so, and he knows the way he survived in the league for 9 years is being a swing tackle, playing left and playing right. So I get it. It makes sense. But when you come off a day like you had yesterday, where I'm looking at you, I'm like, who the hell is this playing a very important position? I would like to see if that was a fluke or if that was something that can be built on. And obviously the offensive line coach and Mike McDaniel, they've got their own agenda and they're doing their own evaluations and as they should. But I'm selfish like that, Poop. I want to see what
You're
I want.
Very selfish. You need to work on that.
I need to work on my friendship skills.
Honestly, I'll be honest with you. I charted and focused on every single solitary play very, very intently and seriously. It kind of faded a little bit after Jalen Ramsey got hurt because my eyeballs were on him to see what was going on. So unless there was a lot of that going on in the final, I don't know how many plays there were after he left, 10 plays or whatever. I don't know that I saw as much in terms of pressure on the quarterback and quote unquote would-be sacks as you did.
Oh yeah. I mean, we must have given away 3 passes that probably could have been sacks to various quarterbacks. And, only reason when we discussed it as a media contingent, I said, yeah. And then when they put it on a highlight, what are you going to say to the fans? You're going to say, oh, well, we counted that as a sack. Like, you understand what I'm saying? It's, you can't be too overly generous with sacks, but the pocket wasn't clean today. And that, the pocket wasn't clean. The run lanes weren't there.
There were a couple of plays that were good.
Too many backs were stopped in the backfield.
A lot more than yesterday, that's for sure. That without question. And since we're talking about the running backs, I want to address something because this was a comment I saw on YouTube complaining that we keep talking about how Salvon Ahmed and Devon A-Chain look like the same guy. And somebody pointed out, well, A-Chain runs a 4.32. So Ahmed runs, I don't know what he runs, a 4.4 maybe. How can you not tell the difference? 4.32 and 40 yards. What's the difference in a 20-yard or in a little burst at the line of scrimmage that you're really going to really notice? I'm sorry. Again, in terms of style, build, again, skill set, they're very, very identical. When I'm not backing away from that stance.
And fans will realize this when they get out at practice and don't let them go to the far field. You can't tell who is who. And they were up close to us and we were still mixing them up. Who was that? Like, was that H? And I think it's something about, something about the way A-Chain like wears his jersey. Maybe it's rolled up where you can't see the full number in the front, because I consistently look at A-Chain and be like, oh, that must have, I consistently look at Savon and be like, oh, that must have been A-Chain. And it was Savon.
Yeah.
And I said this yesterday and I piggyback on it again today. If we told Dolphin fans what Salvon Ahmed is doing and said it was Devon A-Chain, all Dolphin fans would be like, we have a new starting running back.
Correct.
Am I lying to you?
You're not lying, and I'll go one step further. If you took off their jerseys and let them play with a numberless, just a generic practice jersey, I would challenge Dolphin fans to tell me who's who when they carry the ball. Again, they're just very, very similar.
We've watched it now for a number of weeks, and every single one of us struggles with it. So
yeah.
They have
the
very
binoculars
similar.
Come in handy. I have to use.
They have very similar running styles.
They do. Yeah.
And Savon is running hungry. He's running desperate. He's running like he's a man who's thirsty. And but I have always said for years, I like Salvon Ahmed when they don't have pads on. Then I have these high expectations for Salvon Ahmed when they put pads on, and then he vanishes into thin air. And I never see it.
Except that he did have, he was really good in the game at Buffalo last December. So to me, and then against, was it New England as a rookie in 2020 in the December game where the Dolphins wore the throwbacks, which they will do again against New England this year and also against Dallas for those 2 home games. Side note. Ahmed rushed for 100 yards that game. So he has had his moments. The consistency is not there, but I think Ahmed is complete luck to make the roster, particularly.
What? Especially with Dalvin Cook.
Well, because Dalvin Cook, my guess is he's not leaving New York. He's heading to New York for a visit with the Jets. My guess is he's not leaving New York without a contract, which is what I've kind of been saying all along, that the Jets scream to me as a logical destination because they have a team where they've gone all in to try to shoot for a Super Bowl, and they have their stud running back from last year, Breece Hall, coming off an ACL. He's going to be a great replacement until Hall is full go. And then once he comes back, to have Hall and Cook as your 1 and 2 running back tandem, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I've always known and felt that the Jets were probably in the main competition for Miami. I'm disappointed because I personally believe that even though the backfield will be adequate right now, I would rather go eat at Ruth's Chris than eat at Olive Garden. Just my personal opinion. And right now your backfield is Olive Garden. And while it can fill you up and, you get a lot of breadsticks and some Caesar salad, it's not going to be an exquisite meal. Not that I'm a huge Ruth Chris fan, but I just couldn't think of a high-end restaurant.
Yeah.
But, if he ends up, when I saw that Aaron Rodgers took $35 million off his paycheck for the next 2 seasons, like, that's a bigger contract than there are 10 players on the Miami Dolphins that makes over $6 million a year, and that's it. Like, $35 million is a lot of money to walk away from.
It is.
That there are a lot of guys who won't see that in their entire career. I would probably estimate that 20% of the league sees more than $35 million in their entire career in the NFL. And for you to give that back and guaranteed money, there has to be some understanding. You go get me Dalvin Cook. Make it happen.
Interesting. Yeah, that's possible. It's possible. That makes sense that there would be some sort of, because I'm sure Aaron Rodgers told him, listen, I'm going to take this haircut, this really nasty haircut. You better do something with the money and not just stick it in your pocket. That makes perfect sense.
And props to them, because I knew that the Rodgers deal was going to be a sticking point in terms of how much they can offer Dalvin Cook.
Right.
And because Rodgers had to restructure his deal because he was on the books for $100 million, over $100 million next season, which is just ludicrous. Nobody can do that. Right. But for you to take a $35 million haircut, give away guaranteed money, that's crazy. But it does help shed the reputation Aaron Rodgers has had, that he's a shrewd businessman and just cares about money.
Or that he's selfish. Yeah. That he's all about Aaron Rodgers. No, absolutely. And this is the thing, that when they made the trade, they were not necessarily getting Aaron Rodgers of last year from Green Bay, where he became a little bit disenchanted with what was going on with the Packers, stayed away from the offseason and didn't work with his wide receivers. All of a sudden they have a bunch of new guys, and took them a long time to gel. So there was a report also that possibly Cook was going to go visit the Patriots as well, along with the Jets. I have a feeling, again, I'm not sure the Jets are going to let him leave the building without a contract. I think it just makes too much sense. And again, with the point that you make, that with the Rodgers contract restructuring, pay cut, I know that all the things align for that to happen. Anything else stand out for you before we wrap this up?
Yes. It's premature. It's super early, but Tyreek Hill doesn't look like Tyreek Hill right now.
Completely agree.
And I get it. He didn't participate in all of the offseason program. He's saying he has a better understanding and mastery of the offense, and maybe that's cool. Maybe you should just go out there and freestyle. And yes, he was being covered by Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard. Maybe chemistry is off with Tua, but this ain't the same Tyreek Hill that I watched early in training camp last year. Maybe it's the play call as well, because I'm not seeing him that much in motion yet so far. He
was dominating practice last year.
Oh,
crazy. We need to say, though, in fairness, he should have had a really long reception later in the practice. I want to say it was Skyler who underthrew him and allowed Ethan Bonner, the rookie free agent cornerback, to come back. And
it is Tyreek Hill versus Ethan Bonner, 1-on-1, 40 yards downfield. Who's supposed to come down with that ball?
no, but it was underthrown, and it wound up. It is my eyes didn't deceive me. It wound up hitting the back of Bonner as he was trying to make
You
up.
better be careful. You better be careful with that. You better be careful with that. Your eyes.
Well, I reserve the right to amend that statement to say whatever video might show, even though I don't.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that's a video the Dolphins are going to.
People don't realize we watch practice without the benefits of replay, and it's bang bang play. You don't get a do over. All you see, because according to Marcel, he saw that hit Tyreek in the numbers. All we saw is Tyreek had to slow down. Both of them go up. Marcel says it hits Tyreek in the numbers. You say it hits Bonner in the back. We don't have a replay. The team has a replay, obviously, but I'm curious if they'll put that.
They're not going to put out an incompletion on social media. Are you serious?
It might be an Ethan Bonner highlight for his career. Don't be disrespectful to Ethan Bonner, who's the last of a dying breed at cornerback.
Like I said, I'm trying to remember. I don't even remember if I had my binoculars or I was just looking with my glasses, which are very strong, by the way. I'm completely blind without my glasses, but they're very strong prescription.
You're just given to a non-fuel.
That's fine. I can deal with it. That's fine. Usually,
I can see a Poupart. I'm completely blind.
Or yeah, we need to cut him some slack. Obviously, poor guy can't see anything. So he doesn't know football and he can't see anything on top of it. So anyway, my recollection of what I saw at the time was it wasn't like Tyreek dropped the ball. It was an underthrow by Skyler that allowed Bonner to come back. And like I said, did it hit his arm or his back or something? I couldn't tell you, but there was another.
Tyreek should have came down with that ball. The Tyreek that I know from last year would have come down with that ball. The Tyreek who's going for 2,000 yards this season would have come down with that ball.
Yeah, that's not
and I think if Tyreek was given the opportunity to speak, he'd tell you, I'm practicing like poop. No offense, poop.
No pun intended. No, of that we can absolutely agree. And no, he has not looked like himself. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up. We're going to do this again tomorrow, practice number 3. Mike McDaniel speaking before practice. Obviously, we'll be anxiously awaiting what he has to say about the status of Jalen Ramsey. Until then, he is Omar Poupart. Thanks for watching.
All right.